60% population of African Americans, but then when you look at the criminal justice system, you see just 1 or 2% of people on the force. And then one should be able to see that there's a disparity that's there with inequity, and then try to do something about it. That's the pattern I think Henry would indicate to us that we should be able to see, that it's going to be a perpetual motion of injustice within that type of system. So we just happen to see the reoccurrence of it over and over again, and now our president, our government has said we need to send someone down there to spotlight it, to look at it in more detail. Even though they got off, we need to look at it. Well, it's just a matter of time where it's going to reoccur again, because it's a part of the social structure, part of the system. So we need to do something about that system, because the injustice is just there, and I think by understanding it, then we can get the fortitude of a large number of people to try to change it. Because,
okay.
Yes.
So, Dr. Sanford, we're going to take this second commercial break, and then we'll come back and we'll allow you to continue our discussion. And we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. Thank you, and welcome back to the final segment of the show for today. We're talking to Dr. EKSanford from Tennessee State University, and he's given us some information relative to the African American in the criminal justice system. And of course, Dr. Sanford, let's pick up where we left off and give you an opportunity over the last 10 minutes in a real sense to sort of give our audience as much information as you possibly can in reference to African Americans in the criminal justice system from any perspective that you'd like to take.
Okay. And again, I think as we started talking, we see this as social structural, meaning the many institutions that make up the society that we live in and the interconnections I would like the listening audience to understand. So when we think about the family, if that's strong, then you find a decline in negative activity with the criminal justice system. But within our society, if economics is declining, people don't have jobs, it impacts family. And then you have religion, and if you have families in decline, economics in decline, and religion is trying to do their best to help those families, but they don't come up to par, you find an increase in issues there, such as the Ferguson. So then you find the government that gets involved, and they are trying to create certain programs that might help low-income urban areas or either rural areas that might be low income. So I'm trying to get you to see that within those major institutions, there's an interconnection between there. And when those things are good, then we'll find the criminal justice system and people not being deviant within the society in which we live in. So we can almost give kudos to, President Obama on that national government institutional level of saying, how can we help families have better health care? How can we help families have pre-kindergarten and kindergarten for everyone within the society, so that hopefully that would impact the criminal justice system in a different way. But even given that, I'm talking, as we may mention to the last segment, about the disproportionate amount of people that are in prison, the disproportionate amount of people that are in the criminal justice system, the behavior that those who are in authority, such as police, and in the actions of Martin or Brown or Gardner or the kid in Cleveland that was shot. How do we have a more humanitarian way within our criminal justice system, along with the positive and good things about the system? Because it does keep order. If we can imagine it not having a criminal justice or policing, it would be chaotic. It would be running amok with people out in the society. So it does a good job, but we need to look at the weak parts of it and try to bring some reform. I think reform is the issue. How can we change it so it can improve? Because there's definitely a disproportionate amount of it that then would make sociologists and social psychologists see that it appears to be disproportionate to African Americans and other minorities, and in that minority group, it can be any ethnic group or the bashing of gay brothers, lesbian sisters, or anyone that might consider themselves marginalized within the society in which we live in. So that becomes very crucial to look at, I think, within the society.
You know, Dr. Sanford, let's look at some of the solutions. I would imagine that you've been involved with a large number of folks dealing with solutions and et cetera.
Yes.
Let's use the rest of this time to think in terms of how do we move toward solving some of the issues that we have here. Certainly we can't do it on this show, but at least give us some ideas to the path that we could possibly take in terms of trying to bring some answers to some of the problems that we have.
Yes. Well, just as I would like to share as I open up with my experience of working with the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, just as this chief of police here in Davidson County convened with other ministers, and we had a discussion about the Ferguson issue so that people could have some clarity about community type of service from policing and how that could possibly not occur here and be proactive. So one of the solutions, I think, is having a good community relationship with authorities such as the police officers and the mayor and that group of people, so that we can have some continuity on understanding the issue, the concern, and the problems within the community. Second, coming from that framework of law enforcement agencies, we have to understand that really there is a lot of deviance because of the low income, because of family breakdown. People are being deviant. They might have more weaponry out in the community than even the police force. So I can see how they can go into situations and be very fearful when they go in there. I think we would be too. But that said, how can we then be proactive in taking a change within the criminal justice system to get our mayor and the governor to understand that we improve conditions within the social structure, meaning the communities, and helping families, and being innovative programs and innovative policing. How can we improve those conditions? A third thing, of course, is that a solution is that, of course, education. And I think from pre-kindergarten through high school, how can we better inform our kids about what happened in the past so that we can have a better type of society presently? You know, here we are, we've talked about the movie Selma. How can we get people to go and talk about that, see the connection as to what occurred during that time is very similar to what we're watching right now that has happened with Martin and Garner, and what happened with the whole issue in Ferguson with the Brown case. And or going back earlier at the Emmett Till case, 1954-55, or during the Civil Rights Movement. But the issue today
or
is
during Nat Turner's insurrection, which is to say that that's and I think you've said that.
That's right.
It's a part of American institutional kind of thing. Very good.
Absolutely. From slavery to now, we've seen some of those same patterns. And so we need people who are in authority to understand those patterns so that then they can look at the present system that we're in and then bring about change. As recently as last night with President Obama, he mentions that in the State of the Union, that we might have different perspectives on looking at what happened in Ferguson or the Brown case, but if we can deconstruct it and at least come to some commonality of what we agree on, we might be able to make some advancement. And I think that's another solution as well. But we have to understand the issues and concerns, understand the patterns, and see that pattern, and then have some solution to it. And then understand that race is still a part of social structure. It's a part of the American value system. When we think in terms of how we value education, how we value science and going to Mars, people in America value racism. I mean, it's a part of this society, and we have to understand that to then say we still need programs to deal with it. Absolutely,
right,
but you have to understand.
It's not going away, but you can mitigate it with certain programs and certain attitudes and understandings and acceptance.
Absolutely.
Very good.
But we have to understand it as a solution. And what has happened here in America historically, we like to sweep it under the rug, so to speak, or not to have a true dialogue. When I say true dialogue, I mean, we have to understand the terms, the concepts of what is prejudice, what is stratification, what are some of the disparities of someone who has and someone who doesn't have. One of the questions I might ask sometimes in my class, why would someone spend $15,000 to $20,000 to send their kids to a first grade, second grade elementary school, so that they can be in a social environment where just the kids are reinforcing learning in the same way. They don't have to be ostracized by trying to be a good student. And that's what they are spending it for. Can't be too much content different, but how can we have systems like that that can help that infrastructure of everyone that goes to the public schools in the same way? So that would then help the criminal justice system. There might be some interplay with police officers going into the public just in their regular clothes, helping out with coaching, helping out with doing it, so they can see that authority figures are there to help, not to be an agent against them. So we need to come up with innovative types of solutions, and I think it's all in the understanding of it, the history and the social science of understanding the problem as a system.
And Dr. Sanford, let me thank you over the last minute or so that we have here dealing with this problem, because I think you've been here before and we've talked about it from this perspective. But I think that you do bring a fresh and a new understanding in terms of some of the things that happened that had some impact upon the system itself. And I want you to know that I certainly appreciate that, because we've dealt with this, as we've said, on many, many occasions. And I think that over the last 30 years, it's always been the same, African Americans in the criminal justice system, and et cetera, and et cetera. But I think that people might be coming to an understanding. And I think it's because people like you and others have been able to bring a different perspective in terms of some of the issues that we have to face. And that's why I want to thank you and for being here with us today. And let me encourage our audience to tune in again next week for another informative edition of Comments. Thank you and good morning. Thank you and welcome to the show today. We're fortunate to have with us to talk about overcoming negative attitudes and conditions, Pastor Kay Walker, who will give us some information relative to his background, education, and experiences. Ms. Sonia Brown, Minister Sonia Brown, who will also talk about some of her experiences from her book, From Prison to Praise. And of course, Mr. Ricky Waller, who will give us some information relative to how to overcome addiction by dealing with his book, Still High. And of course, we're simply glad to have all of you here with us today. And Pastor Walker, since you know these individuals in a real sense, why don't you give us sort of a summary in terms of why they are here with us today and some of the things that you think that they might be able to bring to this particular show. And then after this first segment is through, then we'll go through the background education for each of them, and then we'll have them to talk about some of their experiences.
All right, Dr. Henry, thank you once of all again for allowing us to be on the show today. I actually met Minister Sonia Vaughn Brown through Facebook. She had sent me a message on Facebook telling me about her book and everything. I guess she had been reading some of my posts or what have you, and seeing the mindset that I have. But she sent me a message on Facebook about a book that she had put out and everything. And of course, you know, from all the various shows we've done over the years, I'm always interested in people who have experienced negativity in life and have endured that negativity, and at the end result is they